The paranormal department office was a good find. It was a conference room that I dressed up with papers from the 50s, mythical monsters, and key things that tell the audience this office is related with unexplained phenomena. It didn't need to be so detailed. The shot types were primarily close shots and medium close-ups, and we were only there for one day. The office is in 3 scenes from the pilot. It was an easy shoot. This was the first week of filming Case Files, and we shot Jess at the desk and had to go through the props. We then shot Jess and Will together, wrapped Jess, and then shot Will at the desk doing all of his parts and going through the props. We filmed a lot more of Jess than what ended up in the final. There was a phone conversation that Shannon had with another agent, but it felt too long and just dragged on, so it was cut, and there was only a small part of Agent Scott's dialogue trimmed from a couple of pieces. Altogether, it was a good atmosphere. It was Jess's first day. It was Will's day 1, and I couldn't wait to call them back on set for more.
I will.
The retail park was in the first draft. It was written that Madeline and Finn were headed for the retail park, and when they arrive, there's not an explosion, but it's filled with creepers. When it came to pre-production of the retail park scene, and I contacted a few people, we only had a limited time to shoot it. So I revisited the script and wrote something quicker paced that ends with an explosion. I wanted to show the city abandoned, so this location was a target, because it's always full of people, as you can imagine. It's the biggest retail park in the whole city, and I wanted that scale of emptiness. So I shot a lot of wides to display that.
Okay, cut!
The internal B&M location was amazing. I could have shot a whole feature inside there. There was just so many great locations inside the complex, and I was really happy with the outcome. Here you can see Rachel Fiona Gilchrist, Zara Best with Melissa and Kirsty Harrower sneaking through the warehouse. We had to be careful and apply safety measures at all times whilst we were on set. A huge risk assessment had to be done covering the whole area. Liability insurance was quite expensive. I had to send the company the final script for the retail park scene, and I thought there's no way they're going to go for it. There's too much running, the floors were really slippy in some areas, and it's not an awareness film, which in my opinion some people do use that as a leadway. However, they got back to me within 3 days, gave it the all clear, and it was down to us as a team to get on set, utilise the location, and come up with an explosive sequence. The Tower Flats was a location I had to secure. I was optimistic about acquiring it. It was going to be the place where Angela resides, and a lot was going to take place inside the building. The Tower Flats stand on the highest part of the city, so almost everywhere you go in Nottingham, you can see the Tower Flats. When it came to filming inside the building, I realised that bringing script to screen was going to be difficult. There were so many levels, and different things needed shooting on different floors. We would finish dialogue parts on lower floors, then move onwards and upwards, only to realise we'd missed something or left a prop on a lower level, so there was a lot of running up and down the levels, rectifying the work. The staircases were really warm. There was no aircon in the building, so after 20 minutes of film, everyone was dehydrating. We shot this through the summer, and during the third week of filming, there was horrific news about the Grenfell Tower incident. It's so sad, and my heart goes out to all the family and friends of the people who were lost. After this had happened, we didn't want to continue filming. We took a few days to mourn for the deceased. I think because we were in the Tower Flats constantly for a few weeks, knowing that another block of Tower Flats had sadly burnt down, it really affected us, and we just wanted to take some time off to respect the lost ones. Angie's lair is where the guards and Angela discuss their politics. In the story, the apartment that they reside in is Angela's deceased mother's. Angela is trying to perfect the retrovirus. The guards are trying to find a suitable host to continue with the stealth cloak project. They're running tests on the squatting residents who are trapped inside the building.
Begin testing on a new set of bloodlines from level 12. Make me work with somebody.
The shadow guards take each subject to what they call Angie's dungeon, which is located a couple of floors below Angie's lair. The corridors were a lot smaller in length than I anticipated. They were tight and really hard to film in. I had been to the Tower Flats once when I was a kid, and I was sure the corridors were really long in length. However, that wasn't the case at all. I wasn't really happy with the corridors, but I still went ahead and filmed the scenes. There was an old elevator that still worked, and this made me really happy because I was able to execute the Shadow Guard jump scare sequence. It was a difficult location to secure, but a lot of tape and a little patience make all the difference. The graveyard, to my knowledge, is one of the largest graveyards in the city. I took an afternoon out to visit and I scouted the whole location. It took about 2 hours to get across the whole area because it's so huge and I didn't want to miss anything. As ironic as it sounds, the graveyard is a beautiful place. It's peaceful, it's quiet, there's hardly any disturbances. There are caves in the graveyard and the nature is magnificent. There were so many different shot types that I could achieve here. It just captivated me when I was doing the scout. For the original draft, I'd previously scouted another graveyard, and I was happy to begin filming there. It had elements that I liked, and I was going to go ahead with it. Fortunately, I found this one, and it just felt more special. It felt like the narrative required this one more, so I drew up a storyboard. And when it came to the call date, one of the supporting acts couldn't make the set call due to an emergency, and Anais was already on set from London. Fran and Angel were local actresses, but there was other performers coming from different cities all over England to portray the roles as creepers, so I had an emergency on my hands. I went through my phone book and found Benjamin Studd, who I'd previously shortlisted for a spoken role. I called him and I said, somebody can't make the set today. If you're available, do you think that you'll be able to come on set? I can send you the script, and how long do you think it'll take before you can get here? And Benjamin hopped on a train. He was located about 40 miles away, and he learnt the script on the train, came on set and gave such a brilliant performance. He was literally my hero that day.
Come on! Let's have you! Come on then!
Everybody liked him. He's a really nice, genuine guy. He had great screen presence about him. I can see he's going to go places in the future, but like so many in the series, his character had to die. For the death field, other than the weather, the location wasn't really difficult to secure for filming. We filmed here 3 times, and each time there was a lot of actors on set. There wasn't that many disturbances, and it was away from heavy traffic. The field was more than big enough to fit hundreds of people on it and do a showdown, a onslaught, a sort of finale battle between the survival convoy and the creepers. A perimeter was set up and different areas were assigned to different roles. The makeup team would use the hut. On the bigger shoots, we always ran a boot camp to prep the actors before their set call, which was ran by Will and Martin. And then the parents and chaps would have their own area to meet. We did a good job of organising. It took a lot of work to bring so many people together, and everything ran smoothly.
Slate 1B, take
Take one.
First time that we filmed here, Alex Butler was on the cameras, and then after that I had Tom's Ozzins there, who's a genius, and we both split the storyboard and went off into 2 units to capture everything. I couldn't keep the convoy members alive. There were just too many characters to continue on to episode 4, so a high percent I wrote off towards the end of episode 3, and then the remaining characters would later on meet a certain death in episode 4. This was a reshoot. There were complications and we had to recast. I had to rewrite and add dialogue for the new characters. All the action sequences had to be covered again, although this time we got enough to make the death field battle successful. The courtyard was a location that I first viewed at the night. I didn't know this place existed, and I was out with one of my friends, and she said, "I really want to show you this location, perhaps you can use it in your zombie film." So we went to the location, we walked around with torches, and I could see that it was beautiful, and I was all like, okay, I'm coming back here tomorrow daytime. And I did. I scouted the area. There was just so much richness, and it was very vibrant. It had monuments, it had rocks, it had water features. It felt like the perfect place for the characters to take a rest, regain their energy, and figure out a way forward to the cable cars at the Heights of Abraham.
What's our next move?
I suggest we get to the barricade in the next 12 hours.
Having the labs open the door and invite us in to film was a very difficult and long process. The labs contained everything that I needed to bring the vision to screen. Every lab that we wrote to wouldn't give us permission. There wasn't a lab that would let us bring our cameras within 10 feet of the entrance doors, let alone come and do a 6-day zombie sequence. And I was getting stressed and concerned because the labs were a signature to the narrative. Crucial elements of the story happen inside the labs, so there was no try. I had to secure a location for filming at all costs. And astonishingly, one of the labs got back to us and said they've had a change of heart and that we could use their facility to film what we needed, which was such a relief. We were permitted to film in 7 or 8 different locations within the labs. Some of the labs were off bounds to anyone without level 3 access. Those rooms were really futuristic. I remember peering through the blacked out window and having a look inside. Above Angie and Ryan here you can see a picture of Erasmus Darwin, who was an English physician, a natural philosopher, psychologist, slave trade abolitionist, inventor and poet from the 17th century going on into the early 18th century. So I chose this location to film the kiss between them right beneath the legend himself. I'm really happy of our achievement in securing this location. A lot of the story would have been lost and so much of the vision would have been eliminated should we have been unsuccessful in being permitted to film in a lab. It would have clashed with every episode, forcing me to write an alternative version that I really have no idea how I would have approached. The Living Forest was a location where I always wanted to film. I grew up close to this forest and used to play here when I was a kid, so it was special to go back years later on and do something creative.
And action, Will, run in.
I knew the forest like the back of my hand and began working on a storyboard for episode 1 and 2. We were on location for the whole summer. Lots of work needed to be done here with a lot of action sequences. A lot of the forest scenes were deleted. I'd rewrote and updated the script and applied the same dialogue for the more relevant scenes. The location is 2 huge forests that are separated by a field. The forest field had a really nice view of the countryside, so I applied it to this shot.
Action!
Forest Field creeper assault on Agent Scott in episode 2 was added to the second write-up of the script. Originally, Agent Scott was going to run through the forest and Angela appeared from behind a tree and killed him. I'm happy I changed the screenplay to what it is now.
Turn, Alicia, look at the tree.
Boot camp was initiated, ran by Will and Martin, and the crew came up to me after and said that's the best creepers we've had on set so far. And it really was. The Living Forest field creepers were spectacular.
Okay, cut there.
I wrote the windmill into the story, but my vision of what it looked like on the inside was totally different when we arrived on set. It was really tight inside. We had lights, tripods, cameras, actors and crew. There was always something in the line of fire. Equipment was constantly being nudged or knocked over. This was the only wide we managed to capture. If we set up anywhere else, there would be steel pipes or big planks of wood in the shot. The windmill had 4 levels. We only used 2, but had actors coming into the shot. As you can see here, Martin has to duck to make it to his mark. The staircases were really steep. You had to use both hands on the banister to balance yourself as you walked down to the next level. And there was a part where Jess had to grab her utility belt whilst having the gun in her hand and attach the belt round her waist as she was walking down the stairs. We tried it a couple of times, but it was too dangerous to do any more takes. The external windmill scenes were very close to my vision. I was happy with the shots that we captured. Filming on the balcony almost didn't go ahead because of a safety issue, but it was sorted for the next day when we arrived back on set, enabling us to shoot the balcony scene between Spencer and Detroit. The externals at the windmill in episode 4 really matched the timeline as it was written that the night was approaching, and by the time we filmed all of the externals on the grass, the night was approaching and the windmill lights came on. Other than the internals, it was a very enjoyable shoot and I was really proud of the whole team. With some of the other locations, I had ideas and alternative locations where we could potentially shoot them. However, Foster Exports wasn't one of them. Finding a factory that would give us permission to film an action sequence shootout, I didn't even want to begin to contact any companies and brief them on the script. I had no idea where it could be filmed, so I pretty much left this location in the pre-production folder until last. When it did come to the time to find the location, it was actually my friend and his dad who allowed us to go into their factory at Brat's Ladders, Nottingham, and create the shootout sequence. The location needed to be shot in an environment that was industrial. A lot of action was going to take place here. It was an important part of the story where you see the agents breaching protocol to save the city from eradication. The end of the episode Malevolent turns over the next 2 episodes, bringing it to a finale, so it felt right to have the climax happening through this episode. I think we achieved a lot. We filmed here 2 or 3 times on very long days before we had everything that we needed. The exterior grounds were really flexible. there was enough room for us to run about on handheld and capture the actors at a fast pace. There were big tankers for the actors to take cover during the shootout sequences. There was a tower, sort of turret, that I could take advantage of to execute some unique shot types.
Action!
The shoot at Bratz Ladders / Foster exports really went well. We got a lot of work done in those few days and it was a big achievement for everyone. The retrovirus was unleashed in the East Midlands area of the country. The virus annihilated 27% of the city's population within 48 hours. After the capture of Angela, she was taken to one of the islands at the top of the country and detained at Stornoway Psychiatric Correctional Facility. I'd contacted a lot of hospitals and they wasn't cool with us coming in and doing any filming. I really didn't want to end the season with a standard location, so I pushed myself to make it as special as I could. And finally found a hospital who gave us permission to film there, although it was really pricey to hire and they were charging by the hour. This was one of the last scenes that we shot. I was low on budget and by choice we had limited time to complete the scene. The hospital had a lot of detail. The close security cameras really added to the set design. It was only scripted that Angela was handcuffed to the bed and she had NHS bandages running up her arms. The corridor was sufficient enough to deliver key parts of the dialogue and give the audience an update on the situation, as it had been 2 weeks since Angela's capture. The floor was really smooth. It felt really nice running a slider down this corridor. There were no uneven surfaces and probably the first time I've used the slider with so much ease. It was also a great opportunity to show Spencer and Shannon in their alternate costumes. I had an alternate ending that was written but wasn't filmed. It featured Shannon and Angela, but it didn't feel like the right ending for the season. It was more like an ending for a feature film, so I'm glad I pushed myself to get into a hospital and execute a more satisfactory end to the season than what I originally wrote. Editorially, this scene had a few issues that I couldn't fix myself in post. I had to seek insight and watch tutorials on how to repair optimized footage as well as the proxy files. So I just wanted to give a thank you to YouTubers Larry Jordan and King Tuts Pro. Thank you so much for watching the segments of Case Files. Be sure to check out the other bonus features included with your purchase.